Welcome to the Being Human podcast. In this episode, episode number 8, we bring on our very first guest. Her name is Naite. Naite is a woman that both of us hold dear to our hearts. She's played a significant role throughout our journeys of initiation and rites of passage into adulthood as men. And in this episode, she guides us through the 4 stages of the human experience that many indigenous cultures around the world adhere to. Highlighting the importance of this process, we have nothing but love and respect for her. And it's only fitting that she be our first guest on Being Human. Prepare for blastoff, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you on the other side.
You brought some medicine with you.
You could call it that, yeah. That's a good way to start. The medicine, we talked about how let the medicine kind of come through. And in some of Hayashomi Storm's work, he talks about the sweet medicine, always referring back to the sweet medicine, which is kind of another name for great mystery. So medicine actually is great mystery. But it comes in these, like you're talking about the man on the moon and stuff, it comes in ways that we can fathom. So like the sage and the eagle fan and all the things that are used in this pretty physically based tradition of Native American culture. But that's also what do you call it? Not a sham exactly, but some people say that they didn't really go to the moon. It was like a Star Wars set. Yeah. So to me, the ways of the indigenous, let's say, feathers and plant medicines and everything is kind of like man on the moon, but the understanding behind it is as pure as the teachings in this book, Ramana Maharishi, the Advaita, pure being, our natural state. So where Ramana or someone like Gandhi would, only have his loincloth kind of thing, as would the warriors, if you will, who went out on vision fast. They would just have there's another word, not loincloth, but I forget the word they use for it. And, just so basic, such a basic thing. And we were talking earlier about clothing and being aware of what you're wearing. Like somebody might have had to remind Gandhi to put that on, because it just isn't where they are. And then you bridge all of that sort of nothingness that we are into this world of regalia and ritual and things that we do with our hands and we see with our eyes and we engage in words and everything is really the same thing. It's all exactly the same. Yeah? So the other day, actually just yesterday, I was doing some beadwork on these fans and I was getting a little frustrated or I was in a bit of we'll go back to this too. There was frustration being perceived and experienced by the person. And so I sat with the fans, which I'm preparing for Sundance, which is a very physical ritual. And I know that the sage is a way to call the spirits close. It's also, they say, to clear out negative energy, but that's the same thing. Negative energy is ego. So when we light the sage, we're saying, I'm going to be in the spirit. I wish to be with or converse, if you will, with the spirit world, not ego. So that's what happens when I light the sage. So all of this is in the intellect. And I'm fiddling with the beadwork. I'm fiddling and okay, as soon as I get this next row done, I'll light the sage. Kick your butt. But I want to get this row, I want to figure this row out that I keep having to redo. I. So who is this I? So the lighting of the sage, the smudge, it could be sweetgrass as well, but right now we're working with the sage and the teachings of it and behind it. Behind is a good word, because what's behind that and the act of doing it, so using my will, I'm going to struggle through this. And if I achieve it, it's my victory, right? So I'm giving it all over. And then, it didn't make the beadwork necessarily change, but what changed was who's being fed. Who is being fed? The two wolves thing. So, and why is this wrapped in red? And I had my suitcase the other day with my medicines, and you said, why do you people use a suitcase? It's a thing that Native American culture sort of, or I should say not all, because mostly I work with Lakota. And it's something that got picked up along the way, using these old-fashioned suitcases to keep all your medicine in. And the other day too, I came, it was, I don't know why, I was looking at Sundance stuff for YouTube, and there's a old video of a 1972 Sundance ceremony at Pine Ridge, which is interesting because 1972, it was still banned.
Video?
No, Sundance. Sundance itself ceremony was still banned. And then they made a video of it, and it was the same time as well that Leonard Crowdog and those fellows were in Wounded Knee. They were occupying Wounded Knee. And this Sundance had maybe 10 people, 5 men, 5 women, and one 7-year-old boy did the whole thing. And he was the son of the grandson of one of the medicine men. And so there was, oh, my brain just checked it, lame deer and fool's crow were the main the backing up medicine men, and the guy doing the ceremony was Pete Catches. And they had their suitcases. And, that was a time where you really had to protect the ceremonies, you had to protect the things, because the egoic world was so, well, it still is, so fierce. And that's kind of what the wrapping of we call sacred, our sacred items is just acknowledging that the ego world is prevalent, and we choose not to engage. So we're going to keep our things in a certain way that is a reminder. This is a reminder too, like lighting the sage. It's all a reminder. Where am I choosing? It's the choice of the being, of being and then human. So that's the title of this, yeah? Being human. And you were saying, what is it to be human? To be human from the state of ego. I was going to read you a little passage from Ramana, really. And this is a really commonly known allegory or metaphor, I'm not sure which one it is. So the ego may take different and more subtle forms at different stages of one's practice, but it is never destroyed. Now that's something maybe we can get to a little bit. But it says here, the attempt to destroy the ego or the mind by methods other than self-inquiry is like a thief turning policeman to catch the thief that is himself. Yeah, it's the wheels, and in the course we had the circle of foxes. It's just like the fox chasing his tail, the fox chasing his tail. Self-inquiry alone can reveal the truth that neither the ego or the mind really exists, and enable one to realize the pure, undifferentiated being of the self or the absolute. So to say that again, self-inquiry alone can reveal the truth that neither the ego nor the mind really exist. Man on the moon. And so the feeding of the wolves, that parable of the old man speaking to the young boy, saying inside of you is a white wolf and a black wolf or something, and which one are you going to feed? It's a bit of a, not exactly a joke, kind of a joke, but the self, if you're saying the white wolf is your higher being or higher self, doesn't need to be fed. Yeah, so they kind of not exactly riddle maybe, yeah? It doesn't need to be fed. So if you're feeding something, which means trying to prove something, or like pushing an opinion, or all the kind of I person stuff, is you're feeding the person, you're feeding ego. And ego, he said it cannot be destroyed, but actually in that sentence, you have to really take in the whole of the teachings of the Bhagavan, the Bhagavan, and that it actually, it can and will be destroyed. So what would it be not to have ego? Your turn.
I think it would just be. You just be. But you'd be all of it. Like there would be no recognition of it, I don't think. But you'd be all of it at the same time. Like, I feel like I've maybe had moments or glimpses of maybe an experience like that, where it's like the oneness. It's like the oneness and the connection of everything. And at the same time, like, yeah. It's like we're trying to talk about the thing, but the words won't get us to the thing. At least that's what it seems to, like. It won't take us to the thing, the experience of that thing, and I think that's what we're like, that's what that is. It's like I can say maybe it's the oneness or the connectivity of everything, or just the place that exists within myself, that exists within us all, that exists in everything. And I, like, the words don't, like, I can never get there with the word, because the word is like pointing to the experience of it.
What's behind the word?
Yeah, and that's what
The job of the initiate is to discover what is behind the words.
Yeah, and can that be spoken of? Can that be talked to, or can that only be experienced?
Well, that's the great paradox.
Yeah.
We've been given the gift of language, of speech. So, in my experience, more recently, when I went to see Muji in Portugal, who I've been also following his words, watching his YouTubes and such, and just like, yeah, I get what you're talking about, but, it was to a point, yeah? So I went to Sahaja, which by the way means that full absorption in self. That's what Sahaja means. No mind. No mind. No more thought. You're not living in thought, because the majority of us are living in a world of thoughts. And this is to live outside of that, or beyond, or behind, if you will, these kinds of words. And I put my hand up, and I got called up, got the microphone, and I was super nervous. I hadn't met him in person before. I went up, sat at his feet, as it's called, and I said my thing about something about duality and non-duality. And then he started talking, and he did this thing that he does a lot, and I've seen him do it many times, where he says, so this is like the world is always going like this, the mind and everything. And and you're aware of this, but is awareness doing this? Yeah? So awareness is the stillness watching all of this, but then we get sucked into this and we think this is what we are and who we are. And so I'm just, and he's talking, and I, with the hand movement, it kind of helped because I was familiar with it. But there was something in me that I could not understand a word he was saying. It was like static. Everything he was saying was just like this kind of static. And a part of me was like, oh, I'm in front of him with a mic. What if I forget what I'm going to say? I mean, just this kind of stuff is going on. And then he finishes, and he just turns and looks at me like, okay, your turn. And I carried on. I had a bit of a script, which a lot of us do when we go up like that. And so we played, like I would call it ping pong for a little while. And it was lovely. But that moment of, and you know, I think I also, in that moment, had the option, I'm not going to say could have or should have, because it's not that. I had the option. The option was available to say, I didn't hear a word you said. But it wasn't ripe yet. So it went on. It went on. And so this now is 4 months ago, time, whatever time is, but there's a ripening process. And then there was a set saying of a couple of them recently, because he's been just really, like his arrows are so tight right now, his pointings, the pointings that are being transmitted through that being. And there's just, I could follow the words and understand them, but understanding, which is a very high level of consciousness, real understanding, was behind the words with them. But I could still comprehend, recognize, and acknowledge the words. But my consciousness was mostly behind the words. Yeah?
So like you could, you were able to watch yourself trying, like the person trying to understand, and the one understanding you were also
Even
aware of?
trying was removed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I call it interface. So there's this thing of intermittent awareness. And this is what happens around, well, this stage, I would say. This is what is being experienced by this being is, you know, first there's this full ignorance in the veil, and you don't see anything about what's behind, the Wizard of Ozness, right? And then it starts to, interface means like, if this is the picture of us right now, another picture, just pixels of it, start to come through. Yeah. Let's say just even light. So here's an image of stuff, and behind it is the screen of consciousness, which is white, let's say, pure white space. But we don't pay attention to the white space. But it starts to come through pixel by pixel. You could just say even a little, like square by square, like, you can imagine this, right? Oh, so yeah, there's this, and then something else starts. But then the something else starts to take over more and more pixels until that's all there is. Wow. But then the other one starts to come through that one.
Yeah, so it's like the first one, so it's like you get it's like at first you don't know, you don't see. Then it kind of begins to come in, and you begin to kind of see glimpses, or like little speckles almost, or little pixels like you kind of described. Then all of a sudden there's a point where it's like more and more of that begins to show up until it becomes all white. And then through that you see what was already on the first side, but you see it through the lens of that one, in a sense of like you still see the first, like, the first image that you saw before it got pixelated. You see that through that whiteness, or the piece that's there first. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. So this brings us back to the policeman and the thief, and being human as opposed to a human being. It's changing the default. Yeah. So eventually the default isn't this. It's the white space, and glimpses of this come into the white space.
For us to learn.
Yeah, and that's the better way of learning to be human, because to learn to be human as in the ego world is the fox chasing its tail, because there's all this right and wrong and should and shouldn't, and this, which is all the ego keeping you in the circle of foxes, keeping you chasing your tail. Yeah. So yeah, so the journey, if you will, of being a human, or having that human experience as a spiritual being, which is that common phrase, yeah, has to start with being the spiritual being. It can't start with being human. Well, it can and does because of the forgetting.
Yeah.
But the real learning, the real learning.
I had this image while you guys were both talking about being birthed and this pure innocent light being, and then being exposed to all of the worldly things, and slowly this blanket was being put over the light being, and then through the process of waking up and becoming aware, it's like those lights that you spoke of were actually coming from the inside, from that pure innocent one, and poking the holes out, like disintegrating this like cape, if you will, that was kind of put on to me through conditioning, through projections, through all of these stories and make-believe things that I was taught to.
Made-believe, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like the moth-eaten coat, and you don't realize how moth-eaten it is.
Yeah.
And that's something actually, well, I talk about in this, right, which has got the moth on the front. And that's also, I mean, the whole thing about the moth can't resist the light, and yet, you know, we resist the moth. It was a great story too about the moths and the flies. Can I tell? It's I heard Muji told it, but I think it's a good one. So the flies, there's all these flies, and you know, their life basically is consuming shit. Right? They live on shit. Da 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 da. And a couple of the flies, they notice these moths just flying around and, you know, doing what they do, and they're just so attracted to the light, and the flies are like, oh, we want to be more like the moths. So the flies, they, you know, the head council, whatever, the flies, they go see God, and they say, God, we realize you made us the way we are, and we have our job to eat shit, basically. But, you know, we've been looking at these moths, and we want to be more like the moths. Can we be more like the moths, God? So God says, well, go find the moths and talk to the moths. You know, moths. It's a funny word to enunciate. So the flies, they go off and they start hanging out with the moths, and they watch their behavior and their ways of being, if you will, and maybe their customs and their rules and da da da, and then they come back to and they watch them, you know, go into the flame. Sometimes they do that. They'll go right into the flame, right, and then poof, they just disappear. And then they go back. The flies come back to God, and they say, so yeah, God, we went and we hung out with the moths, and we want to be the moths. And God said, if you want to be the moths, you wouldn't have come back. If you really desire to be the moths, you would not have come back here to ask to be the moth.
Be the moth. Just be, not the moth. Just be.
What does the moth do, though? If you really want to be the moth, what does the moth end up doing?
Offers itself up
into the light.
Into
it flies into the light and becomes nothing. Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah, okay.
So what is it to be nothing? So in this world of ego, so I've had the experience of the dissolution of ego. It was in Bolivia, after a all-night Wachuma ceremony in Kiva. And then we were taken out of the Kiva in the morning, and the place is right in front of Ilumani, which is the grandfather of the Andes, this huge white mountain right there. And in the early morning, the sun rises there, and they have us all lined up, and our heads are facing the mountain, and the sun peaks and hits our crowns. And then we go and have a sweat lodge, and we're at 13,000 feet, so it's pretty cold out there. And then they pour a bucket of freezing cold water over you. Gone. Gone. And there was another woman who was a little similar. We were talking a bit afterwards. And so I'm just wandering around in my wet dress and really disoriented. And they come up and say, oh, they're going to serve breakfast over there. You can get changed and go have breakfast. And I was like, what's breakfast? I didn't know what breakfast was. I knew it had something to do with that building over there, but I didn't really know what breakfast was. And then I went into my room and I was so cold at that point. I was just shivering, and just went under the covers and tried to get a little warm. And then they came and said, get dressed, come have some food. And I was trying to put on my underwear and I just could not figure it out. Could not figure out how to put underwear on. Yeah, and ended up just wrapping myself in a blanket and going out and sitting in the sun for a while, and finally kind of thawed out and had some food and came back. But that can be really scary. Yeah, that could be. I actually wasn't scared because I was so out of it, really. But afterwards, I was very discombobulated, trying to come back. How do you say, come back from that? Or not trying to come back from that? There's also, being human is being kind. And there's I think Gandhi or one of them said about, what is it now? I lost my train there. When you are in your spiritual self, and also Ramanath speaks of this, it's a bit tricky territory, because when you are nothing, also the Japanese wabi-sabi theory, nothing lasts, nothing is forever, nothing is perfect, nothing lasts. What's the third one now? I'm getting, the discombobulation funny is kind of coming. So here I am at Muji's feet again. And there's like this interference going on for me right now. Which world am I in? Am I in the ego or am I in spirit? And there's a battle, that's what it is. Be kind, because everybody's having the same struggle. Everyone is in the same battle. And it's this two wolves thing. But again, like the self doesn't need to be fed, but as a human, we need to we have to use our free will to choose to be in awareness. But the funny thing about that then is that you're always in awareness. I'm aware I'm talking to you. I'm aware you're sitting there. I'm aware there's a camera. I'm aware there's wind. It takes a lot more work to be not aware than it does to be aware. It's our natural state. So how do we forget that? How do we get discombobulated and confused? So I was in confusion for a moment there. And I was aware of it, and rather than be in it and try and fight it and get out of it, is just all of a sudden like, no, I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to come out of it, see it, be aware of it, and stay in the awareness. And in the awareness, I recognize there's no such thing as confusion. There is suffering, but no sufferer to be found. There's nothing identifying. I was in identity with it. I was in identity with that experience, and where the identity was in that experience, grappling with ceasing to be. And even that is a memory. I can put that over there. And so now we get into what I call the feed bag, not just feedback loop, but the feed bag. Like a horse has a feed bag, yeah? Because every experience that the mind encounters, thought, memory, imagination, fantasy, all of it, the ego can take, the thief, so to speak, and it is like the black wolf, and that's how the ego stays in existence. And the ego will have you reincarnate and come back lifetime after lifetime. It doesn't care what body you come in. It itself has this impetus. But we've also said it doesn't exist. Ego doesn't exist. We're getting a little far now. Let's just slow down.
I'm a little bit curious about the spirit that, or the light that doesn't necessarily need to be fed, because it already is. And because I've been going through Martin Prachtel's discography for the, last 4 or 5 months, something like that. A lot of my focus has been put towards feeding the spirit, my spirit, spirit as one. And so I'm not sure I understand that spirit already is. And I can even understand that because it is, that it doesn't need to be fed. One of the teachings in his books said that we create beauty because beauty is what keeps God alive. And I remember you, I think, sharing a teaching with me about that the spirits don't have thumbs. And so as humans, we have thumbs, and the spirits have a reverie for that, because we can do certain things, create certain things, build things, play music, maybe move a little bit in a way that's humorous and graceful to them. And so I've found my experience of feeding the life that feeds me to be fruitful. And so hearing that and having a level of understanding that the light doesn't need to be fed because it already just is. Here I am in confusion.
So who's the one experiencing confusion?
The ego.
What is the source of the ego?
The mind.
What is the source of the mind?
Ultimately, spirit.
Ultimately? There's something in between.
No, absolutely not. Spirit. Yeah.
Spirit. So the word spirit, self, Bhagavan, consciousness. So here we come to the feed bag. Okay, good. So in your own time, though. Okay, so the source of everything is consciousness. Consciousness created the mind. Consciousness created the ego. And we say they don't really exist because they're illuminated by the light. The light is shining on them. And so there's this sense that these things exist. The light is shining on all this. If we were in complete darkness right now, like we are in Yuwipi ceremony, it's just darkness. Can you still say anything in that room exists? Because you can't see it, right? So it would be memory. It would be belief that there is any kind of object at all in that room. Okay? So consciousness is the light, and it shines the light on things. Okay, we'll say mind and ego, and then it breaks down into, from like thought, imagination, memory, and then it breaks down into body, table, glass, and it breaks down into molecules and particles and waves and da-da-da-da. Like it just goes on into that. But it's all illuminated by this. The feed bag is that everything is right in front of us. Every experience I have, because I is the self. I am consciousness. Consciousness sees its creation and loving all its creations. It is illuminated and then it is burnt like the moth. It dissolves. The light fully dissolves it. There is only the light. And that is a way of, it's not exactly feeding the light, you see. But if you leave that and you don't do that, it will feed the ego. It will go into identity. It will be taken over by identity, which is the headquarters of ego. So this is where the choice comes in. Which wolf are you going to feed? Is that we have the option to continually, I feel confusion. Oh, wait a minute, confusion isn't, thank you, there's consciousness shining into my human consciousness. Human consciousness is a level of pure absolute consciousness. With my human consciousness, I experience confusion, but it's not mine. Everything belongs to the source. So we give it back. That is what is called reciprocity. Yeah, that is the truth of pure indigenous awareness reciprocity. You give it and it is given and you give it back.
It's all an offering to God.
And even, God is consciousness, yes? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's not some object.
No, by no means is God an object.
Yeah. That is the true reciprocity. And what a good deal.
Yeah, it's like the best deal ever.
Yeah. And then a beautiful butterfly just came in and just swooped in and then just left. Yeah.
And a fly. Yeah, it's pretty much a win-win for everybody. And then, now we can sort of swoop in a little bit, like the butterfly, who also, by the way, ate shit. Butterflies. And experience, so what, from this place of the light, what is it to be human? And humankind, so being in kind of the light, which means equal to. And a lot of the teachings, like Ramana says, people come to him and what are we going to do about war? What are we going to do about all this kind of stuff? And he goes, if you meet me here, you won't be asking those questions because it doesn't exist. And people have a hard time with that. Well, of course suffering exists. We know that. That's the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is there is suffering. But if we live over there, we're adding to the suffering. So you come through the Four Noble Truths. Yes, there is suffering, and you could say recede back up into the light where suffering is alleviated. It's not alleviated because you put Band-Aids on it. It's only alleviated when you are the light. And it's alleviated maybe not for the, let's say, a person who is physically tortured or something of that extent. That is part of their dharma, their darshan. And this is all also, it's called predeterminism. And we also have free will. I mean, this is the part where here's the light and then it goes into all these other realms, right? There's that stuff. And yet, it just can get complex, and it can get, right, wrong, and all those sorts of things. And that is one of those realms. It is part, that area, in that area. But when we come into the light, it's, you can almost say you can do no wrong, but that's where we have to be careful, because it's like an elder, true elder, or a shaman, cannot say, I am a shaman, or I am an elder. It's counter to what it is. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't say, I am perfect and I can do no wrong. Yeah?
Is that you being, is that you being somebody in that moment? Like, you've identified with the mind, with the egoic aspect of ooh, I am that person, or I am the elder, or I am the shaman. It's like you just are.
You just came out of the light.
Yes,
There
yes.
we go.
In that moment, you just stepped out. You're like, ooh, hey, look at me. It's like the spotlight, just look at me. But then that's not it, Is that kind of what you meant by that? Okay.
So the primary basic meditation is I am. And it's funny, I had these cards made up. We have the right one here? Yeah, a while ago. I don't know, something just came over. I thought, I'm going to make a business card. So, it's got my name, way of counsel, I can barely read this, or adult initiation, vision fasting ceremony. And so, it's all, there's me and a beautiful image that a lovely fellow named Lance created. And so that's on the front, and it's kind of shamanic looking, And on the back, in the white space, I am.
Yeah.
Right? So this is Maya, and this is essence. And this, if I could do it on a thing, can blow in the wind like this. Just, you know what I mean? If this was on a pivot.
Yes, just constantly just spinning.
And then, maybe like Wheel of Fortune, it'll stop there. And then sometimes it'll stop there for a while. Yeah? So it's really to just, this is the practice every day. And meditation means living that. Meditation isn't sitting on a cushion. It is. It is at a certain level, of course. Another win-win is there's a level for everybody. Everybody gets this in their own way. They say the sacred escort. You're on the sacred path, and you will get there in your own time, in your own way. There, which of course is like the alchemist, what you've always been, and always will be.
It brings me to your shirt, I feel like that's the journey of, I would love to hear you speak a little bit about that, but I think it's that's the journey. At the end of the thing, when the screen is pixelated or you're on the other side, it's that's individuation. It's then you live from that place, but it's almost like you have to go through those rites of passage.
Exactly.
In order to move. Or first you have to know, instead of living in confusion and not even being aware that you're confused, you have to be able to see that you're confused. There has to be that level of awareness there. And then from there has to be the question, well, who is the person that's seeing the confusion? And so it's just I feel like that just leads you to the place in which you begin to experience that. But there's the rites of rites of passage in a way for those of like, and I loved how you touched like everyone is at the different stage and at a different period, and there's stages, there's things for everybody, you know, there's places for everybody. I feel like in my own life, it's like, I feel like meditation has become life in the sense of how can I, instead of sitting on a mat and meditating, it's like, how can I let life and be with life in a way that is meditation? How can I be present with it? How can I, like, those are all like, how can I be here with it and allow that to be the thing that helps me see or get free in that way?
Say it again. How can I, what's the question?
The question, I would just love, like, that wasn't the question, like, there. I just love to hear kind of like you speak on, like, just, I can't read the first one. Individual,
Yes.
is it individual?
But I just want to come back to how
Okay.
can I,
Get
because
free.
you already said you're living meditation.
Yes,
and you
yes.
said, how can I get free?
Yeah, how can
Who's that?
I know, and that's the me that's like thinks that I'm not free because I am free, and it's just like, and that's where I get so confuddled, you know, because it's like I am
Okay, stop
free.
there. You're in kafuddle.
Yeah,
Good words we have, eh?
Yeah.
Kafuddle.
yeah. Feels so fun to be there.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you get a bit of a kick out of it.
I do. Yeah, like that's the
Okay.
mystery, and I think that's what gets to be let go of. Is like that.
You're
Like-
it's a bit of wonder,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful
Curiosity.
thing.
Yeah.
Curiosity. So we had this
Yeah.
conversation in the car. We did this in the car on the way back, I think,
Yeah.
from, was it? From the mountain, from Vision Fast?
Yeah.
And you were asking me question after question, and I was
Yeah.
parlaying with an answer. And eventually I just said, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because what are we feeding? We're feeding my ego to answer you, and we're feeding curiosity, and it's going absolutely nowhere. Yeah. So let's just put an end to this now. It's been lovely, you know, because
Yeah.
there is that, and I was
Yeah.
aware as it was going on. I wouldn't say necessarily, but it was feeding. But I was aware the whole time too of what is it to have the answer. What is it to be the one who's being asked, you know, and the teacher kind of thing. And so, you know, there has to be awareness all around. And so, okay, with this we were talking about the process and the rites of passage. So the rites of passage, the certain rituals at different stages of life, of age, of human development, kept us on track. So we weren't wandering off so much. We've gotten, you know, we get a lot of time to wander, spin our wheels. But is that what we want to do with our lives? With this life? This human experience?
I think. I think that's a big problem today, is that we actually don't really clearly express and know what we really want. It's like that kerfuffled. And so it's getting really clear on that. And then also letting that go and surrendering to what life gives us through that process.
There's a lot on the table, hey, right now?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I am not going here yet. So why don't we just take a moment, and you can have your eyes open or closed. Sometimes it's easier with your eyes closed, because with the eyes open, it just takes a stronger mind. And so we're going to say to mind, because mind in its essence is pure. And it's a matter of bringing it back to the pure state. So, you know, just bringing ourselves into the I am. So who are you? Who are you? Who are you? I am. I am before. I am before everything. when the spirit came into the body, the very first essence of human, when essence entered or introduced human consciousness to itself, it was represented as I. So you've just come into the world as spirit, as we could say, or as a individuated piece of consciousness. And the first thing that arises in human consciousness is I. And then arises, I exist. You're still an infant. You know nothing of name. You know nothing of gender. You know nothing of mother, father. You don't even know what a body is. But you know I exist. This is the ultimate, if you will, or truest common sense. The sense of I. This is common sense. Every single being has experienced this. So sitting in this contemplative state of consciousness, let the confusion and the problem and the questions arise in front of you in this kind of feed bag, because it's right in front of us. You don't have to go looking for it. And call it, feed it to the light, but just bring it in front of the light. Yes, so the light is shining on it. And then the light is so bright that it just dissolves. You're not even doing anything. It's just the way it is. Bring it before the light and just witness the light completely dissolving it. Now all there is the white screen, if you will. Nothing is playing on the screen of consciousness in this moment. It is just pure consciousness. That is remembering who we are. With each child that is born, the morning star rises and sings across the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreaming. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the spirit of love. With each child that is born, the morning star rises and sings across the universe who we are. So now if we go and we allow these next words to populate the theater of consciousness, we are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreaming. And you know, those things are just flowing in the river. Yeah, they're not. You can't like objectify it. A prayer and a dream somebody praying, or something, an energy of prayer, an energy of dream. Because the river is just it's the great dream. It's life is a dream, and it's the river. And Jumping Mouse is standing by the great river that he didn't know existed. He didn't know what a river was till Raccoon brought him to it. And he sees big and small parts of the world floating by, and the river is laughing and roaring and thundering on its course. And then Frog kind of tricks him, and he ends up falling in the river, and it's very scary at first. But before he fell in the river, because Frog had him jump as high as he was able, he saw the sacred mountains, and that imprinted on him. And he held to that, even as he fell in the river and felt betrayed and all these other things came. He held to the vision of the sacred mountains. And we could say that this I am consciousness is the sacred mountain. And it absorbs everything. Reabsorbs, because it created everything and it just comes back. This is like the sacred hydrological system. But when the river meets the ocean and goes into the ocean, it's never going to be that river again. So if you want to stay with this and then open your eyes, if you haven't already, and stay with it with your eyes open, this is how we be. But like solar, you know, it kind of, you have to keep charging it. And then we go into the world, go to the Saturday market or go to the grocery store, and it kind of drains. So you have to, we are encouraged to come back to this. So we could call that a proper meditation, but more just call it focused. You can be doing it anywhere, anytime. Not while you're driving a car particularly, but even driving a car. Mm-hmm. But you want to, you know, don't try this at home, folks, kind of, there's different levels, yeah? Mm. So let's come back to this. This one would not do that driving a car. It wouldn't even be possible. It wouldn't even be possible because consciousness is the arena of no harm. Ego is where harm happens. So we talk about the tortured person or something like that, you know, abuse, these kinds of situations. That only exists in the realm of ego. How do we help the world? We come back to where we are right now, not where we were, because we are here. Even though we're talking again, we're looking at each other, yeah? We can still be there. At this, it's the same, you know. It's happening at the same time. So we don't have to go live in a cave. We don't have to recoil from the world, because the world is our teacher. You know the story?
First mother, first father?
Uh-huh. No, sorry, the other one, 12 worlds.
Oh, the 12 magical worlds, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we all came as light beings, and the Earth Mother offered this school. She said, come, be relatives together, I will provide everything. And then ego took that and went, ooh, yeah, smorgasbord, smorgasbord. But what she was offering was, I will provide everything for you to come home to yourself while you're here. Because you already were consciousness before you came, and you will be again, but you have this opportunity as a spirit having the human experience to, just to do that here with all of this. Why? Nobody really knows. That's the great mystery. And in this awareness, one can enjoy and feel the joy, which is what the essence of the word aloha is. What we're speaking, with these words are speaking of oh yeah, just kind of came and went there for a moment. What's there? What's there? You pick it up.
I think the essence of aloha, joy, is this gift that I've been given, this opportunity to be alive. What an honor.
Who's the one being given? Who's the one being honored?
The one is being honored, which I am.
Does the one need to be honored?
No.
So come back into this stream. This is good because this was here. Is the joy of life, taking care of life. Life is not confined to this world, to the earth. Yeah? So your aliveness is before you were this body, and it will continue after you are this body. So where's the gift of being alive?
It's all right here.
So we can come back to the feedback of the gift of being alive, but I'm already alive, and I've always been, et cetera, et cetera. So before you get into too much of the paradox of it, is just let it dissolve, the gift of being alive. The gift of being alive. You can acknowledge it, or you have this thought, this idea, And that's great, because the reason consciousness gives us these things is so we can continually come back to who we really are. Oh, there's a This is life taking care of life, if you will, because this is kind of what we think of life, the body and everything. So every thought, even the thought, it's an honor to be given this gift. Great, give it a good, and then just let it dissolve. Don't hold on to it.
Yeah.
Because even a thought that sounds good, you know what I mean? It's just that, just keep giving it back. And so coming back a bit for the grandmothers, grandfathers, and the ancestors is also, those words have high attachment indicators or indexes or something like that. So we have to remember what's being talked about. It's in language, and that the ancestors, we have our own lineages, apparently. And that is on a certain level, but ultimately the ancestors that are being spoken of in indigenous ways are the ones who live in the light and always did, even on this realm. That we call our well ancestors is a term now that is going around. Like when we talk to the ancestors, we want to call upon our well ancestors. I did some work with our friend Alicia, who's been doing ancestral work, and we did this sort of like go back through the lineages, and I could only find one ancestor, I'm going to say capital A ancestor, who was well, and it was 10 generations back on my father's side. Yeah. And I acknowledged like Fool's Crow, Frank Fool's Crow, and Black Elk, and many, many others in indigenous traditions who are also ancestors and were enlightened in their physical bodies. And that I have not personally in my in the school that I've sort of been in, come across that being acknowledged. Where everybody's pretty high on indigenous traditions at the moment, plant medicine and the native ceremonies and the Mayan and the da-da-da. But I haven't really heard a lot of what was behind all the rituals, and acknowledging that many of those humans are and were enlightened. So let's come back to this now. Because the Lakota say that it is the responsibility of every human to become individuated, which is this one, as you were saying too, to be in the light, to be the light, to know that you are the light. We come in, we are introduced to human consciousness with that I moment, the I sense, and then the I sense gets completely buried in ignorance as we get conditioned in childhood and as we grow. So the rites are saying, this T-shirt, I have to say, it picks it up in the absence of the rites. In the rites, at 8 years old, it's recognized, okay, that's when the ego has maxed. We want to cut it off now. So this is extinguishing the ego at 8 years old. It's something that works for you up to 8. If it keeps going, it takes over, And then you're living a blackberry patch. You're living in a world of, yum, 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 ouch, yum, 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 ouch. Blackberries are hard to, if you take some big effort, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what this is, this REAR program, because REAR is, we're bringing the ritual adult education and the initiations, but they're, ultimately time doesn't exist. So that's one of the things we're working with. So even if you're 35 or 40 or 50, you can go back and do a 14-year-old fire ceremony. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those rites were like they were such a beautiful acknowledgement of we're the light, and we know that we're having this human experience, and we understand how this human experience works, and the things, the checkpoints that have to be in place to for this to always be the default, for the light, not this is not the waving, but the stillness to be the default while all this is going on. That's what the rites provide. And it's usually around 8, 14, and 21. And then into elderhood, it's a longer kind of process. Not as... And then you have the other rituals like sweat lodge and UEP and ceremonies and Sundance, which also bring us back to the light. And not only that, but kind of into the broadcasting. Not only being the light, but broadcasting it. Does that make sense? Kinda?
What do you mean by broadcasting the light? Does that mean allowing it to flow through you in that way?
Or once we...
Well, you are it.
Yeah.
It's not even allowing it to flow through you. Ultimately, it's...
Just shines a little brighter when we're...
Yeah, it's like we call it a disco ball, you know? The sun, which is the chief, who's the actual chief of the ceremony. Through the ones in the circle, it's like it's an exponential kind of sharing of the light. And it can very much dissolve problems, dissolve ego just by being there. And so people come for healing. That's what they come to we come to Sundance as a supporter or whatever you want. You receive healing there. And the ones who are in the arbor, because everybody's part of a Sundance, whether you're the cook or the guy coming to clean the porta potties, really, like they don't always know they're a part of it, but they still are. And everybody, the kids and everybody who's in the arbor, who's making the sacrifice of fasting and being out in the hot sun all day and such. But even that, like I was asked a couple of years ago, I think, or was it last year even, because I eagle dance, and it was kind of frowned upon by some of the people there because women don't generally eagle dance. And the head woman said, "Haven't you suffered enough? You've had children, childbirth, and like haven't you suffered enough?" And I was like, well, on 2 counts. One, I had cesarean, so I didn't actually go through childbirth. And the second one is, I don't consider that suffering. I don't consider being pierced and tied to a tree and not eating and drinking and standing out in the hot sun for 12 hours a day suffering at all. So I said, no. Or not no, because it wasn't suffering, But it did over the years since I heard it. It's also worked me, which is the way medicine is. You hear it one way, and then you hear it another way, and then you hear it another way, and another way. So that was a bit more my righteous way, I think. At first, I was a bit righteous there, and it is true. And even to say giving birth is suffering, ouch. That to me sounded strange coming from a woman, because one of the rites is the coming of age for women, and women. I mean, really, put your mind there for a minute, right? Make good use of your mind. So the woman comes into her time where the universe enters her. and makes more humans. And so in indigenous ways, the woman has always been regarded as the more higher spiritual being than the male, let's say. The female form is a more spiritual form than the male because it becomes inhabited by consciousness, pure consciousness, to create another human or another animal or whatever it is, you know? And yet, the majority of the spiritual leaders are men. So, but that also, their job is to protect the women. Anyway, we're getting into, we're over about here somewhere right now. We're in about here. This part of life, which is a part of life. And this is the thing to, so then we can talk about these things without going, oh, wait a minute, those things don't exist, and da-da-da. True. That's true as well. Being human. Coming from a place where the default is the being and having the human experience, and whenever we get to the kerfuffle or the discombobulation, that's a diagnostic. It's time to give it back. But we're the 2-year-old, no, but it's mine. I don't want to give it back. Okay, you can suffer if you like. That's an option. Suffering is an option. It's all love. From the, and when I say from this perspective again, right, people go, well, what do you mean people torturing each other is love? Okay, so let's first of all dissolve that in the light. Before we go anywhere else with that, let's just bring it back to the light, sit in the light, sit in the light, sit in the light. That's really hard for people to do. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. It's where people, because people are in this realm, are. So you got your person. Your person is over here, and this is the overgrown person. So ego's in control. Ego's the king of this realm. And but it has this vague memory of something else called freedom. Gets this sort of whiff of, I don't know, what's this freedom thing? I thought the car and the house and the marriage and the kids was freedom. But what's that smell? Or jumping mouse. What's that roaring I hear? But he didn't even know what a river was, right? So it's kind of like that, right? But we started. You got to remember, it's full circle because we actually started there, right? And then this happened because of the rites not being taken and given, whatever. And the rites are also. It's one area, you know. Bhagavan Ramana, I think what's his name, Eckhart Tolle, same thing. Enlightenment sitting on a bench, basically. You know, he was like 14 or 16, I think, Ramana. Never had a guru, nothing. And I believe Eckhart similar, I don't know. But that can happen too, okay? But for the majority, this is how it's gone. I also recently read Sapiens. If you read that, it's the brief history of humankind. So we have a really, really good track record of extinction, of making things extinct. In the Natural History Museum, I think it's in New York, I can't remember, but I saw this thing once, some program, and there's this commentator guy sitting in front of this big open doorway in a museum hall, and there's a sign on the top, and it says the 6th extinction. The other halls have the 5th, 4th, 3rd. They have relics of all these extinctions, which is in itself kind of a paradox, right? And this one is empty. It's completely empty. But they've made it like, because we're coming into the sixth extinction, right? So it would seem that it's the extinction of ego, which would leave really this white space, you know, this empty, yes, emptiness, emptiness. So, so this one though, the you know, when you meet the person or another whatever it is that your darshan comes along and takes you out of this, and this little guy or this thing back here now comes on. So it was like back here, and now it comes online, let's say. So the spirit and the human form start to walk together, and this is really where it can get pretty confusing, right? You know, so there's still then at this point there's still a sense that there's two. There's self and other, not only in this one, of course, because if it's in this one, it's everywhere. And then in that I call that integration, the integration phase, which some people, like I remember in ceremony a lot of times, you know, in the morning we share, and then people go, I'm just going to go and integrate this. Well, more often than not, they're going to take that spirit food and they're going to feed it to the ego and call that integration. See it happen time and time and time and time and time again. But integrate means to become whole. Yeah? So there's no, if you're going to integrate, then you're going to move into incorporation. So if integration is successful, you can't keep saying, I'm going to integrate. I'm going to take this info or this spiritual experience I had and integrate it. You couldn't say that anymore because there's nothing to integrate it into. There's wholeness. There's only wholeness. There's no other. There's no that experience coming into this being. So then there's the oneness, the sense of oneness. And then the sense of oneness in incorporation is individuated as the oneness. So sense of oneness you can have pretty, like, you know, get glimpses, but then there's the actual absorption, the moth in the flame of individuated. You're functioning, being human, from the perspective, if you will, the perceiver that is not an object, the being that is creating everything into a level of consciousness called human, which then feeds it back to itself. So it's like the ultimate Burning Man self-sufficiency. It's creating it and it's coming back into itself. The hydrological, you know, where does water come from? It's just here. It's water, and it can never not be water. It can be river, stream, puddle, teardrop, sweat, but it can never not be water. And then it goes through, like, yeah, steam and snow and down to the river, and then but when it gets into the ocean, it's just ocean. And then it can start again, or you can go deep, because the surface will take you back into reincarnation, but the depths won't. And at the depths, let's say, of the ocean, you're not going to be affected by the storms or the evaporation, the whole hydrological. You are the ocean. And that's peace. That's what peace really is, right? So human kindness, be kind. You'd have to have peace to be kind. Yeah. Kindness comes from peace. It's not smiley, you know, and then helping others, because there's no other. The only way to help others is to do the feed bag. It's a kind of a crude concept, but, you know, that's the change to be if you wish to change the world. and the butt. But just let me taste this one a little longer. Being aware of that, great. That's how you kick your butt. It's not that it's not going to happen, but you're kicking the addiction, right? So we know if we're addicted to something, like smoking, I've come in and out of that. I was talking to a friend who also has had that experience where I've been a smoker, 10 years, nothing. Come back, a couple of years, nothing. But when you come back, coffee, same thing. I've gone a couple of years without coffee, and the first sip was like, ugh, this doesn't even taste good. Second sip.
Gets you every time.
By now, the chemicals are happening. Same with nicotine, yeah? Third sip, boom, we're in. We're in. There's also a teaching about wine. One sip is joy. Any more than that, you're toast. One sip of the experience, of the thought, of the memory, of the fantasy. They're going to happen. They're gifts from consciousness. They are the gifts of life. You have one sip and you feel the joy of that gift of being human. Ah! Oh my gosh, all these experiences we get to have.
And that's enough.
And that's enough. And you give it back. And you can still smoke and you can still have alcohol. It's not about that. Because those are just, they are all parts of existence. It's the knowledge, it's Sat Chitananda. Being, consciousness, bliss. And it's all happening simultaneously. So it's the mind. It's what we're it's remembering you're not the doer, and eventually we'll say bad habits will fall away. What's a bad habit? A bad habit keeps you from the awareness of pure consciousness, and they're also called vasanas. So a vasana isn't necessarily I smoke, or I am a smoker or a drinker or whatever. It's the fret about it. That's the vasana. It's the worry, doubt, fretting, guilt, shame. Those are the vasanas. Those are the habits that tie you to ego world. And they're long-standing, lifetime after lifetime, because ego has made you reincarnate for its own survival. Ego makes the body come into another form for its own survival. Can't survive without a body. It doesn't even survive in deep sleep, because you're not in your body in deep sleep. You are pure awareness. So we're always that. Always that. The vasanas piece also is something that I recently absorbed, and I'll say, what's the word? So let's say when we eat, the digestion is to assimilate. Because like, well, what are my vasanas? Are they that I do this or I do that? But that's all the doer. Yeah? I mean, the worrying and fretting is aspects of doer as well, but it's not the doing, it's not the thumb work, so to speak. It's the thoughts that accompany that. Because you could be meditating, yeah? So you're doing the right thing, but your head is worrying about your kids or whatever, right? So that's the vasana. It has to be checked. Who's the one worrying? Oh, it's the ego. Who created the ego? Who created the ego?
Light.
Light,
Consciousness.
consciousness, yeah. Give it back. Doesn't belong to you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything belongs to consciousness. Why would you be a thief
Yeah, it's
of
got-
something that,
Mm,
you know, really isn't yours?
mm.
Another analogy is like, what is it? You break into your own house to steal your own things. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So what if we walk around in the world instead of saying, hi, how are you? We say, hi, who are you? Hi, who are you? And just keep reminding each other, hi, who are you? Like simple shift, really. Yeah. And even then the how, I mean, you could get into, how do I stay a being? I actually, what was it now? I wrote like a few little pointers of, so how do you stay, you know you're the being first, you know, committed to the extinction of ego. And stay connected to pure consciousness. Be aware not to keep feeding experience to ego. Understanding the interface thing, intermittent awareness. So being okay with that, realizing that's going to happen. So I'm going to remember who I am, and I'm going to forget. I'm going to remember, and I'm going to forget. But like solar, battery, I'm going to keep I. Who's the I? There is choice, yeah? That's the last thing Mooji said to me. I said, I hope I keep the teachings with me. And he said, don't bother hoping. He said, choose. When you choose, I'm with you. So there is this choice. Eventually it becomes a choiceless choice. I remember we had a conversation about this. It's part of the REAR program, the ritual education, that you come into this choiceless choice. Yeah? So you could call it choice, or you could call it remembering. Remember. Questions and answers. So who's asking the question? Who is eager to answer? I've started doing a practice where if I even ask you a question, or someone asks me a question, I'm very clear that just because you've asked a question or I've asked a question of you, you are not obliged to answer. We're conditioned. And if we, again, a friend I was with the other day, and like with you in the car, she just kept asking me question after question. And you realize it's not going anywhere. It's a conditioning thing. It gives you attention. If you ask a question, it makes you feel like you're interested, or makes you think the other person thinks you're interested in what you have to say, and somehow you're putting them higher, and it makes them feel good, and because they feel good, they're going to. Here's this whole feeding bullshit stuff, right? Feeding shit, the bullshit. It's total bullshit. It's all bullshit. So just these kinds of things, like being aware, and you could just say, someone asks you a question, just say, I don't know. I don't know. Like, make that choice, even if you do know, or think you know. And then, coming always back to the question, who am I? Who am I? And just sitting with that. And not letting the word be fact. That's a big one. Oh, hey? So we broached on this earlier, right? What's behind the word? Remember what's behind the word. Keep your eye on that. And this stuff will come like subtitles, okay? You're watching a movie, you're watching the movie, and you're at the same time reading the subtitles, and you understand what's going on. But that's not it. That's the interplay of it being everything. So there's some hows, how are you? How are you? And some of the hows we can interact with in remembering who we are. So it's not mystical. It's practical.
Very practical.
Call it practical mysticism.
Yeah.
So in the individuated, we're still in a body, but we're not the body, we're the circle.
And the circle is like the circle contains the body.
Well,
Or a circle is the body.
kinda, yeah. Yeah, it should really be empty. That would be sort of, yeah. But we have these things called eyes. Yeah. That's why it is a little bit easier to meditate. You get more of a barrage of thoughts when you meditate with your eyes closed. And that gives you the opportunity to keep offering them up, offer them, offer them, offer them, offer them. And then, learning to do that with your eyes open, that's just a practice too. And then eventually, just simultaneously being able to do that is life. In that life taking care of life system. In all movement, at work, at play, at childcare, at whatever, every activity that a human, being out in a boat or snorkeling, whatever. Yeah, it really is a win-win. Get to do all this stuff, do, and not do, doing, not doing. Wu Wei. Seeing, not seeing. Can I just read the back of this? I read it this morning. I wrote this like 15 years ago. It's fairly illegible, so to speak. in a
Bit of a tough read.
What would you call it? Tough read? Yeah, yeah. You really got to be with what's behind the words here, or you'll go nuts. Oh God, yeah. I don't know, man. Took a lot of caffeine to write this. So, it said in the back, truth can only be spoken by truth. There is no other way to say it. Likewise, does this book speak for itself, with flowing words warmed up to paint vivid pictures, as in a dream, giving one the extraordinary sensory experiences of seeing as no seeing and doing as no doing. So exposed to the shadowy light of one's own sublime theme, does the novel kind sprout up as a visionary show and tell to demonstrate who you are. You as the well-fed of fantasy, fiction, and self-help, yet still hungry and sweating it out for allegory and metaphor's rich return. And the you standing upon your formative plateau with nothing above and nothing below, faced out in the apocalyptic view of, I just know there's more here than meets the eye. And are you ready to take the leap to greet it? Yoo-hoo. I read that again this morning. It was just like, that was 15 years ago and you're just getting it now? I wrote that.
Yeah.
Not that it's anything super great or anything. It's just that, I look at it and go, wow, yeah, you've been on this for a while, and also this. So sometimes we can acknowledge too our progress. like this one, look back at the spirit. This is now spirit, and that's person.
Looking back on the
So here's the
person.
whole loop again. Now we're going to change the characters. This is spirit, and person's just this figment, a memory. And every time the memory comes up, what do I do with it? Give it up. Give it back up that way. So then there's just, and I can still shop,
Just for what you need.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That, see, those kinds of things don't even come up. Just for what you need. They
It's not
don't
even-
come up anymore because you're still evaluating
What you need.
and judging in that statement, right? Life takes care of life. Look, there's apples on that tree. Yesterday there was a beautiful, right outside my window there's a fig tree, and this one fig, I noticed them, and I had picked another one, it wasn't ripe, and this one fig was just like, I'm the one. And I went out and it was perfect, you know? Didn't have to go to the store, it's there. It's all right in front of us, the feedback, and even that pleasure, this is an important thing, I give it back, right? I have that experience, and even now the memory of it and the joy of the experience, Sit Chatananda, give it back. That's where the bliss comes, is in the giving it back. Not the actual bliss comes in the giving it back, not the taking it. Well, it's a whole, right? You couldn't do one without the other. But we get stuck in the physical experience, and then the ego takes it. We don't get any bliss from that. It's empty. It's insatiable, because ego's taking it. So if you're unsatisfied, you know that you're in ego world. Know where you are. Where? Know who you are. Know who you are. Yeah, know who you are. Self-knowledge. I sent you a song, huh? And this could be on the record or off, I don't know. But I just thought it would be a nice intro and exit in a way. It's called Remember by a woman called Omkara at Sahaja. And I'd heard this song like 15 years ago as well, something like that. And I was just spellbound by it. It's remember who you are. This life is a dream. It'll be over in the blink of an eye. Remember who you are. Whose hands are these? Whose voice is this? Yeah. Whose hands are these? Whose is this? Who am I? Whose hands are these? Whose voice is this? Who am I? And it's just beautiful, beautiful, her voice, and Gautama on this keyboard master, keyboard player, piano, whatever, but he plays the keyboard, and it just comes through him. And then I went to Sahaja, and on Easter, we had a beautiful Easter celebration. Everybody in the village was invited, beautiful meal given, and just offering back to the community and everything. And then there was this impromptu music. And he was doing the keyboard, and then she came and sang, and I didn't even know it was her singing it before. And there she was. I was like sitting at their feet, listening to her sing this song, and just beautiful, beautiful. A gift of voice. A gift of the voice. We say, when I was running Sweat Lodge and ceremony, and we would call the elements, and we would ask for the element of air, teach us to use these voices as music, as medicine and music. And that could be in speech as well. Doesn't necessarily have to be singing.
And
So.
even the piano.
Mm-hmm.
It's singing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's your thumbs. That's good use of those fingers. The way he plays those keys, those ivories, they call it, whatever. Yeah, all the beautiful music and comes from the heart, Yeah. Anyway, and the elements is a whole other layer, but it does kind of bring back a little bit to this, to the, this physical world and how the indigenous ones. And indigenous, by the way, does mean Indi, it means of God, right? I'm not talking any particular creed, just that holistic understanding of life. And then the elements and the four directions, how they are the pinnacle, kind of, they hold it together, And then there's all the things that they create. And yeah. You could say honoring that, that honoring word. Again, who's honoring? It's consciousness honoring itself. Again, ultimately. And the making sacred. Making is a funny word too, but this is something in a red cloth. You don't know what it is, so you're not attached to it. And it's not wise, in a way, to bring it out when we're in a realm of attachment, because then you're going to attach to it as being a certain thing with a certain purpose. So we carry it like this until I get into the arbor, which is sacred ground. And even if people are looking upon it with greed or envy or whatever, or judgment of any kind, it's protected because it's in the sacred arbor at that point. It's not protected, nothing against you guys, but just generally, that's why we carry things in a certain way. To keep the source, their source, not a feather. Yeah, makes sense? Yeah. And when we give offerings wrapped in red, it's not what's in that offering that we don't attack. Yeah? And even when we're giving the offering, we don't think, gee, they're really going to enjoy using this, or this is really going to come. I mean, we do say, give us things that we can use in the world. But we also do that because once it's been given in that way, and then we unwrap it, and then I usually put them in my suitcase for a little while, and then I bring them out into the world. So let's say it's honey. Somebody gives honey or something, or a candle, or even cash. Then it comes out into the world, and because it's that much closer to the sacred, it kind of spreads that energy into the world. Yeah? And there's something else there now. Yeah, it's kind of like we take it and we kind of bring it back to its pure state, and then reintroduce it into the world. And that's what we're doing with the feedback. Taking the experience before it gets into the profane. We, as humans, do something very humane. We give it back. I think that's what humanity really is. We're humane. We take what's given and we give it back. One sip. No suffering. That's what humane means, right?
I think so.
To be humane is not to suffer, not to allow suffering, to end suffering. Let's be humane together. Ahan.